In the forgotten expanse of Duskwater Village, twilight hangs heavy like a shroud over weathered rooftops and empty docks. A serpent-shaped river coils through the heart of the town, its surface dark and deceptively calm. As autumn inches forward, the water swells with recent rains, carrying whispers of past tragedies on its mist-laced currents. Ancient willows bow over the banks, their skeletal branches reaching out with silent dread. Each gust of wind carries a hushed warning, promising that beneath the smooth mirror of the river something stirs. Even the stones on the shore seem to resonate with longing, as if mourning a fate they cannot alter. Sora Ellis arrives at the ramshackle bridge that arches over the upper reaches of the river. Her boots splashing shallow puddles, left by an earlier rain. The air presses against her lungs with cool resistance, stirring memories she has tried to bury for a year. In her knapsack lies Leah's worn journal, its pages damp at the edges from the night she vanished. Every echo of her name seems to reverberate off the mossy stones around her, betraying the silence. Sora's heart thrums like a caged bird, torn between relief at returning home and dread of what might emerge from the depths. Joining Sora are three companions from her childhood. Mark, the pragmatic engineer whose steady gaze masks unease. Jenny, an introspective writer, haunted by her own unspoken fears. And Alex, a spirited photographer who believes that a lens can capture more than the eye alone. Their laughter feels brittle against the hush of the evening breeze, as though each syllable might shatter beneath unseen pressure. They have come to honor Leah's memory, to confront unanswered questions, and to reclaim a fragment of themselves lost when she slipped beneath the surface. Their reunion feels both tender and fraught, as if timing itself were testing their resolve. Around a flickering lantern at the water's edge, they share stories of Leah. Her bright laughter echoing in school corridors, her endless curiosity about the river's hidden corners. Her promise to return after a late evening paddle. But each recollection hints at something left unsaid. Glances exchanged in fear, a hurried promise not kept, a sudden absence that none could fully explain. Sora's voice trembles when she admits her guilt, how she watched Leah slip beneath the crest of a wave and did not follow. The others shift uncomfortably, recalling their own moments of hesitation, as if the river had reached into their souls and carved away courage. At dawn, they push a battered canoe into the trembling current and settle on worn cushions of damp canvas. The oars dip silently, stirring ripples that vanish as soon as they form, swallowed by the river's tireless appetite. Mist clings to the wood, curling around their shoulders like the embrace of an unseen presence. Each stroke is measured, the sound of water against hull, the only confession they dare to admit. Under the pale sun, the world seems suspended, neither alive nor entirely gone, waiting for a shift in the wind or a shudder from the depths. In the forgotten expanse of Duskwater Village, twilight hangs heavy like a shroud over weathered rooftops and empty docks. A serpent-shaped river coils through the heart of the town, its surface dark and deceptively calm. As autumn inches forward, the water swells with recent rains, carrying whispers of past tragedies on its mist-laced currents. Ancient willows bow over the banks, their skeletal branches reaching out with silent dread. Each gust of wind carries a hushed warning, promising that beneath the smooth mirror of the river something stirs. Even the stones on the shore seem to resonate with longing, as if mourning a fate they cannot alter. Sora Ellis arrives at the ramshackle bridge that arches over the upper reaches of the river. Her boots splashing shallow puddles, left by an earlier rain. The air presses against her lungs with cool resistance, stirring memories she has tried to bury for a year. In her knapsack lies Leah's worn journal, its pages damp at the edges from the night she vanished. Every echo of her name seems to reverberate off the mossy stones around her, betraying the silence. Sora's heart thrums like a caged bird, torn between relief at returning home and dread of what might emerge from the depths. Joining Sora are three companions from her childhood. Mark, the pragmatic engineer whose steady gaze masks unease. Jenny, an introspective writer, haunted by her own unspoken fears. And Alex, a spirited photographer who believes that a lens can capture more than the eye alone. Their laughter feels brittle against the hush of the evening breeze, as though each syllable might shatter beneath unseen pressure. They have come to honor Leah's memory, to confront unanswered questions, and to reclaim a fragment of themselves lost when she slipped beneath the surface. Their reunion feels both tender and fraught, as if timing itself were testing their resolve. Around a flickering lantern at the water's edge, they share stories of Leah, her bright laughter echoing in school corridors, her endless curiosity about the river's hidden corners, her promise to return after a late evening paddle. But each recollection hints at something left unsaid. Glances exchanged in fear, a hurried promise not kept, a sudden absence that none could fully explain. Sora's voice trembles when she admits her guilt, how she watched Leah slip beneath the crest of a wave and did not follow. The others shift uncomfortably, recalling their own moments of hesitation, as if the river had reached into their souls and carved away courage. At dawn, they push a battered canoe into the trembling current and settle on worn cushions of damp canvas. The oars dip silently, stirring ripples that vanish as soon as they form, swallowed by the river's tireless appetite. Mist clings to the wood, curling around their shoulders like the embrace of an unseen presence. Each stroke is measured, the sound of water against hull, the only confession they dare to admit. Under the pale sun, the world seems suspended, neither alive nor entirely gone, waiting for a shift in the wind or a shudder from the depths. Daybreak brings uneasy revelations as each friend recalls a moment of failure the night Leah vanished. Mark confesses he ran for help, leaving Leah alone when the current grew too strong. Jenny admits she hesitated at the dock, paralyzed by a sudden fit of dizziness. Alex reveals he hesitated to photograph her paddling too close to rocky shoals. Sora's own guilt flares brighter in the confession circle, binding their confessions into a pattern of fragmentation. As they drift back onto the river, each stroke feels burdened by those silent sins. Tension coils among them, like a constricting vine, as they push deeper into the forested delta. Words become clipped, questions hang in the air like improvised nooses. The once familiar faces of the friends seem distorted, receding and advancing with every flicker of the mist. Mark's gaze sharpens with suspicion when Sora pauses by an ancient stone marker, etched with indecipherable glyphs. Jenny scribbles furiously in her journal, trying to catalogue each anomaly. Alex's camera shutter clicks sporadically, though he never aims the lens at his companions. The river's pulse quickens in their ears, urging them onward. At the next bend, Sora glimpses a solitary silhouette standing on a low embankment, half hidden by drooping branches. The figure's posture is achingly familiar, shoulders hunched against some unseen burden. Leah. Sora's breath hitches as she stares, heart aching with longing. She raises a hand, and the silhouette lifts its own in reply, slowly, deliberately, as if acknowledging a pact between them. But when Jenny and Alex lean forward, the riverbank is empty, the earth undisturbed, the only witness a rotting log mossed over by time. Sora's guilt unfurls like a wounded creature within her chest, claws sinking deeper each time the river dims and brightens with thoughtless caprice. She remembers Leah's whispered laughter as they played by the water's edge, the tremor in her voice when she spoke of ancient legends. Every memory seems to swell, threatening to break its boundaries and drown her in sorrow. Yet, beneath that sorrow gleams a fragile spark of defiance, a determination to face the river's hunger rather than be consumed by it. She sets her jaw and signals the others to continue. Mark's demeanor shifts suddenly. His practical facade fractures under pressure, revealing a tremor of dread he cannot hide. He glances at the journal, then at the water, and his jaw clenches. "We need to turn back," he suggests, voice strained, as though each word must be wrestled free. But Sora meets his eyes with quiet resolve, refusing to yield. Jenny and Alex exchange glances, caught between loyalty to their friend and fear of the unknown. The river's currents swirl beneath the hull, as if echoing Mark's plea with a mocking undertone. Mark's fingers flex around the oar, veins protruding as though the river's chill has seized him by the bones. Somewhere in the distance, a hollow laugh drifts over the water, reminding them that retreat may not bring safety. Under a veil of late afternoon haze, Jenny drifts toward sleep while the others doze. Hours later, Sora awakens to a soft splash and finds Jenny standing at the water's edge, her footsteps sinking into the muddy bank as though drawn by an unseen cord. When Sora reaches for her, Jenny's eyes are unfocused, mind tethered to something beneath the surface. She murmurs Leah's name with hopeful desperation, toes brushing the lapping wavelets. Alex lunges forward to pull her back, but Jenny's head jerks violently, revealing knowledge that did not belong to her. A tremor passes through the group as they realize the river's call can reach inside the mind. Alex retreats behind his camera, unwilling to share the images until he can make sense of them. He reviews his shots on the small viewfinder and stumbles sideways when he sees Leah's face reflected in a still pool. Though no one stood there moments before, the photograph pulses with a haunting luminescence, as though the river itself spilled color into the frame without warning. Alex's shoulders slump with a sudden weight, the thrill of silent proof overshadowed by a growing terror. He shoves the camera into his backpack, as if sealing away a forbidden artifact, then walks to the bow and stares into the unknowable depths. Tension snaps like a frayed rope when Mark lunges at Alex for hoarding secrets. Their argument spills over the river's murmur, voices sharp as cracked glass. Sora rushes between them, heart pounding as Mark's face contorts with frustration and Alex's eyes dart with panic. Jenny retreats to the stern, shaking as she clutches Leah's journal, pages rustling with every trembling breath. For a moment, the canoe stalls midstream, as if the river itself is holding its breath. The canopy of trees overhead blocks the sun, casting them into a dim corridor where rage and fear fight for dominance. Exhausted by conflict, Sora anchors the canoe beneath a grotto of hanging vines, their tendrils swaying in an unseen breeze. She retrieves Leah's journal and flips to a bookmark tucked between pages of half-formed sketches and cryptic notes. The handwriting is jagged, revealing Leah's own terror at something concealed beneath the river's surface. A map is sketched in sidelines leading to a hidden alcove deep in the delta, marked by a stone arch carved with spirals. Sora traces the lines with trembling fingers, as if touching Leah's last plea for help. She senses that this clue might guide them toward truth, or into a trap. Guided by the trembling map, the group disembarks and venture through a corridor of ancient cypress, their gnarled roots weaving a natural causeway. The air grows denser, scented with decaying leaves and damp earth, making each inhalation taste like forgotten memories. Fungi bloom on rotting timber, glowing faintly in the gloom, as if drawing from some subterranean energy. Their lanterns reveal glimpses of carved symbols on the trunks, spirals, and eye shapes that echo the drawing in Leah's journal. Every step feels rehearsed, like echoes of someone else's nightmare. They press on, the hush around them punctuated only by the scrape of boots across layered moss. Sora unfolds the legend she discovered in Leah's notes. Centuries ago, the river was said to cradle a betrayed maiden, a spirit abandoned by love. Her sorrow fused with the water long ago, granting her power to call any who dared disturb the surface. It was whispered the spirit could shift her form, become the reflection of a lost friend, a lover, or a memory itself, using longing as a weapon. The villagers spoke of offerings left at the shoreline, broken trinkets and faded photographs, hoping to appease her ancient grief. But over time, the offerings dried up, and so did their courage. As the wind shifts, the trees around them sigh like weary mourners, and the temperature drops suddenly by degrees. Alex presses the shutter without raising his camera, capturing the moment their breath crystallizes in the air. A faint female silhouette drifts through the trees, slender and silent, as though floating above the leaves. Jenny screams softly, her voice fragile, but the figure falls still and still again, edges blurring into mist. Sora steps forward, arms extended, voice soft as moss. "Leah!" No answer comes, only the echo of her own question. The forest responds with a hollow hush, pressing them toward the archway they came to find. Entering the stone arch, the air becomes thick, with the scent of cold water and powdered earth. The carved spirals ripple upward, guiding the eye to a moss-covered ledge where a trickle of water seeps through cracks. Sora kneels and cups the flow in her hands, lifting it to her lips, and recoils when the liquid tastes metallic like tears long shed by the river itself. Shadows shift across the carvings, molding into shapes that resemble anguished faces. For a heartbeat, the world fractures. The stone seems to breathe, exhaling a whisper that threads into Sora's thoughts like a needle. She closes her eyes, fighting the urge to let the voice guide her deeper. When she opens her eyes again, the others have fallen silent, drawn into the archer's pool. Mark looks ashen, recalling his insistence to leave. Jenny's fingers are stained with faint ink, the journal clutched so tightly that several pages have torn. Alex's gaze is fixed on the water pooling at their feet, as if expecting it to pulse with life. The river's voice resurfaces here, an undercurrent of lilting melody that speaks of lost promises and broken vows. Sora recognizes the tune from Leah's final entry, a lullaby their mothers sang on lonely nights. It beckons them closer, urging surrender to its cold embrace. On the surface of the pool, reflections shimmer with borrowed memories. Birth celebrations, sunlit laughter by the docks, whispered secrets under starry skies. Each image is a fragment of their past, arranged in a mosaic by a force that knows them intimately. As they peer in, the water's face shifts. Sora sees Leah's bright grin melting into something unrecognizable. her eyes hollow and pleading. Mark witnesses the night he promised to fetch help, twisted into a scene where his feet moved too slowly. Jenny is enveloped by the image of her own farewell pang when she walked home alone. Alex glimpses the shutter closing on Leah's face and wonders if his lens trapped her spirit. That night, Sora dreams of Leah rising from the riverbed, hair woven with reeds and eyes glinting with sorrow. Their conversation unfolds in muffled echoes, Leah's voice wavering like a reed in the current. She speaks of being trapped between worlds, neither free nor at peace, sustained by the anguish of those she once loved. Sora exchanges fragmented words of apology and reassurance, promising to find a way to end her suffering. Leah reaches a pale hand toward her, and Sora feels the chill seep through her palm. She jolts awake, heart drumming, damp sheets clinging to her skin, as dawn's first light bleeds through the canopy above. With determination born of longing, the group embarks at first light toward the river's delta, where the map ends and the water loses shape. The current snakes into a narrow labyrinth of islands, mudflats, and submerged roots that loom like specters. The boat glides over shallow stretches, wedging between raised stumps and drifts of coarse reeds. Each time the hull scrapes the silty floor, a tremor races through the planks, as though something enormous stirs below. No one speaks of the risk. Instead, they press on with the shared conviction that the journey itself may break or bind them forever. As the banks recede, the sky dims under an invisible canopy, turning the world to shades of slate and ash. The river's width narrows further, until they navigate a channel barely wider than the canoe itself. Branches overhead knit together, forming a tunnel that hums with latent energy. Sora brushes her fingertips along the ruined bark of a fallen tree, tracing patterns that mirror the carvings on the stone arch. The others trail behind her, eyes scanning the water's surface for signs of movement. Beneath the bow, scales glint for a fleeting moment, too quick to identify, yet enough to ignite an instinctive dread. Midday's feeble light fades as the water churns in placid eddies, drawn toward a sinkhole of shadows just ahead. Without warning, Mark steps onto a protruding root and slips, yanking the canoe violently. Jenny cries out, and Alex lunges to steady the boat, but the shock sends ripples through their focus. In the tremor, the river entity materializes, an ambiguous form that shifts between likenesses of Leah and abandoned memories. It hovers at the waterline, silent, yet throbbing with ominous power. Mark makes a gesture of appeasement, offering a cherished locket to the current, but the object sinks without trace, swallowed by the depths. In an instant, the entity's influence tightens its grip. Sora feels cold fingers along her spine, urging her to glance away. The river ebbs and flows erratically, as if taunted by its own uncertainty. Jenny stumbles, teetering on the brink where water swallows earth, and Sora seizes her arm just in time. Alex turns his camera again, but no lens can capture what writhes in the iridescent ripples. A low hum resonates through the hull, filling every hollow with the promise of oblivion. The world tilts, then rights itself, leaving behind a suspended silence that tastes like dread. Determined to confront the source, Sora discards the oars and grips the keel, urging the canoe toward the center of the swirling basin. The others protest, fear etched in every line of their faces, but her conviction flares brighter than their terror. When the hole grounds on a shallow shelf, She slips over the side and into the chilly embrace of the water. Each stroke toward the shadowed heart feels like moving through time itself, currents tugging at memories she thought long buried. Sora's lungs burn, but she fights to keep her head above water, drawn ever closer by an undeniable force. Beneath the surface, reflections warp into impossible tableaux. Leah seated on the bank of invisible shores, beckoning. Sora's own childhood smile, frozen in a moment of unabashed joy, and a void that ripples into infinity. The entity coalesces around these illusions until it blurs into something both terrifying and achingly familiar. As Sora descends deeper, she glimpses Leah's form, shimmering between reality and memory. Alive, broken, yearning. Their eyes meet in the dark, and Leah's mouth opens in a silent plea that carries centuries of sorrow. The water rings with the sound of their unspoken bond. In the hush between heartbeats, a voice echoes within Sora's mind, neither male nor female, ancient as the riverbed rocks. It offers her a choice. Embrace the current and join Leah in eternal bondage, or return to the surface and abandon the one she loved. There is no third path, no promised salvation, only the quiet certainty that every decision carries sacrifice. Sora's vision blurs as fragments of her guilt and love collide, the weight of regret pressing her toward the abyss. Yet beneath the crushing despair, a stubborn ember of hope flickers, defying the river's claim. Sora's hand closes around a shard of stone that drifts loose from the riverbed, an unassuming rock, etched with the same spirals that marked the archway. She lifts it between trembling fingers, focusing on its cold solidity rather than the swirl of emotions around her. Memories of laughter, loyalty, and promises unsaid converge, forging clarity from the murk. She whispers Leah's name, not as a plea, but as a declaration. I remember you. I choose us, not this sorrow. The water quivers, the entity recoiling at the strength of a love unbroken by absence or fear. With a powerful kick, Sora propels herself upward, breaking through the surface in a cascade of droplets that glint like fractured stars in the dim light. She gasps for air, drawing in cold breaths that burn her lungs but taste sweeter than any promise of surrender. The river's song falters, losing its melody, as if wounded by the defiance of her will. Behind her, the entity's form dissolves into drifting mist, its lament echoing in the spaces between ripples. Sora hauls herself into the canoe, clutching the carved stone as though it were Leah's hand, and feels the first warmth of dawn breathe across her cheeks. The friends gather in the hole, ragged and silent, each bearing the imprint of their ordeal on drawn faces. Mark's hands tremble as he reaches for Sora's shoulder, eyes brimming with unspoken relief. Jenny closes her journal, binding its secrets with renewed reverence for what it means to remember. Alex lays his camera between his legs, shutter silent for the first time since dawn. No words can encapsulate the river's hunger, but together they row toward the open channel, guided by the fragile promise of daylight. Arriving at Duskwater's docks, they step onto familiar planks that groan beneath their weight, as though acknowledging their survival. Villagers watch from threshold windows, faces lined with curiosity and fear, but no one speaks of what they have faced. Leah's journal is returned to Sora's knapsack, safely stowed beneath clean cloth, its pages now etched by the trials they endured. The river lies motionless beyond the pilings, no longer churning with unspoken cries, but reflecting the morning sky with deceptive calm. Their reflections ripple in the water, a reminder that some scars remain unseen, yet indelible. In the days that follow, the village resumes its idle routines. Boats drift lazily, children play by the shallows, and traders unload crates of fresh produce. Yet beneath the surface of ordinary life, Duskwater remains alert to the unseen. Sora walks the banks at dawn, tracing the water's edge with solemn reverence, sensing echoes of her choice in every gentle ripple. Late at night, she hears faint whispers on the breeze, fragments of a lullaby that once drew her under. And though the river never murmurs a clear apology, its melody now carries a softer note, as if gratitude lingers beneath the current. Back in her studio, Sora sets up a blank canvas beside the open window that frames the river's glimmering arc. Her brushes hover over tubes of paint, hesitant yet eager to capture something beyond mere landscape. Each stroke evokes the subtle tremors she felt in the depths. The shaft of moonlight that guided her, the swirl of currents that tested her resolve, and the fleeting glimmer of Leah's form. As colors blend and shapes emerge, viewers will sense the water's eternal motion and the ghost of sorrow that clings to its surface. Sora paints, not to forget, but to remind every witness that some bonds transcend our understanding of life and loss. At night, the canvas stands propped against the wall, its surface alive with the river's shifting patterns. Sora often wakes to find her eyes drawn to the painting's edges, where shadows pool, as though the entity still seeks to reclaim a fragment of her memory. Yet within the swirls of paint, she discovers a quiet triumph. A single spiral carved from light, a testament to the choice she made. The river outside her window flows onward, indifferent and eternal. But here lies proof that facing one's grief can shape fate itself. Even in the hush of darkness, hope glimmers in currents that never truly sleep.